Hello everybody, it's Nicole from iiKiui, and today I have another INSPRISE video. If you don't know what INSPRISE is, it's basically a combination of the words inspiration and surprise. What I do is I take the color scheme or the concept of an object, either from like a blind bag or maybe one of my toys or something of the sort, and I use it as inspiration for a drawing. Most of the time though, it turns out to be a personification or a human form of whatever I'm drawing. So even though it wasn't meant to be that way, it kind of just turned out that way. But either way, I have fun turning different things into characters. So that's the main idea of this series. So today I have a Tsum Tsum, and the one that I got was Suzy from Cinderella. So initially I had a sketch. In my other sketchbook I sketch out several ideas for poses. The one that you're gonna see was not the first pose that I thought of, but for the size of the paper and for what I'm trying to get across, I think it worked pretty well. So one of the harder things for me in drawing this one was getting the proportions, and I tried to make the head smaller than I usually do because the heads, when I draw them, tend to be really big compared to the body. So hopefully that went well. I think it looks a little more proportionate than some of my other characters. As for design wise, initially I was not going to just personify Suzy, but in the end it kind of just looks like that anyway. Because I take the color scheme of the Tsum Tsum, or the object that I use, and like its concept, so using yarn and thread, then it kind of just looks like a personified version of her instead of being the inspiration. So the main concepts that I took from Suzy was her outfit and the thread. So when creating her outfit, I made it a little more complicated because on the Tsum Tsum it's pretty simple. So first I gave her the headband handkerchief thing that like Cinderella has, and then I added more ruffles to her bottom skirt and added a little more detail to her top shirt. And for the yarn, I added it as a belt. I wanted to make an accessory, just to make it more than just a ball of yarn and make it kind of fancy. As for the thread, I want it to be around her hand, and she's pulling it as if she's threading something, I suppose. When I started coloring it, I used markers, and the reason why I did this was because not only do I have more control over the markers since I'm more experienced with them, I had better colors for them, so I feel like the markers matched the color of Suzy better than I could have matched it with watercolor. When I was coloring her eyes, I noticed that they were fading quite a bit, and I thought I would outline it with my cartoonistic mangaka pen in sepia, whatever, in brown. And it gave it a little more of a cartoony look. The only issue with that was that it started to bleed a little bit because I had just used it after the marker, which I shouldn't have done, but it didn't turn out too bad. The bleeding wasn't terrible, but it's still a little bit like feathered out in the ends. For the remainder of the drawing, I used watercolors, and the main reason for that was because I don't have a lot of blue markers, so I thought that watercolors would be a better option. Plus I could practice blending and stuff with them, especially with all those ruffles. For the details for her dress, I just decided to add more ruffles in a kind of asymmetrical pattern just to give it a little bit something different than just a plain skirt. That way I can also add more detail and practice on my coloring like I said before. To outline the drawing, I used Prismacolor Col Erase, but I didn't outline the whole thing. I only added in certain areas just to give it a little more emphasis, but I still wanted to keep the whole drawing soft. As for the thread, I used the blue lead that I used in the beginning and just used that instead, because initially I wanted to outline it with some pen, but I thought that it would keep it more authentic to a thread if I use the mechanical lead. If you know what I mean. That kind of rhymed. Anyways, then lastly I added some highlights with the Signo Uniball pen. In the end, I do like how she turned out. She could have used more detail, or maybe I could have gone in a totally different direction to avoid making her into a human, but I do like how the colors turned out, especially her skin and her hair. I like how it looks with the blue. I think it works pretty well. So with that, I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!